To the world, Jesus' demands sound impractical, right? They sound very impractical. Eat my flesh, Jesus says. Drink my blood. Pick up your cross, Jesus says. Lay down your life to find it. Sell all of your possessions and give to the poor, Jesus says. To his disciples, by the way. Love your enemies. Turn the other cheek. Pray for those who use you. On and on. The world looks at Jesus' demands and says they sound outrageous. They sound irresponsible. What kind of person turns the other cheek? What kind of person loves their enemies?
Well, and also what kind of person sells all of their possessions, because then maybe you wouldn't be able to feed your own children. That sounds outrageous and irresponsible.
It's reckless. To the world, Jesus' demands sound reckless. They say, how in the world could any of this work? And that's exactly how the natural man processes Jesus' words. They say, no, I can't take him seriously. I have to have a gun. No, I can't take him seriously. I have to keep all my money. No, I can't take this seriously because I need to protect my life, liberty, and my pursuit of happiness. Right? So his demands, and here's the kicker. Jesus knows that most people aren't going to accept his demands. He knows that the road is narrow that leads to life. He said it. He said he knows that the broad road leads to destruction. Most people find that road. Jesus knows he's talking to an elect. He knows it. But to the world, Jesus' demands sound reckless. They sound absurd. A perfect example is a gentleman by the name of Christopher Hitchens, who is he's a late author, writer, renowned atheist, wrote a New York Times best-selling book called God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. And let me just give you a quote. 2007, he was on Book TV, and he made this comment on loving your enemies. Here's an atheist that says, it is immoral to love your enemy. I don't like being told that I have to love my enemies. No, we have to hate our enemies and try to destroy them before they destroy us. Now, obviously, that contradicts what Jesus just said, but how many would find themselves agreeing with Mr. Hitchens and saying, I think that's kind of what the whole system that we have today is built on? So I would say that America largely agrees with Mr. Hitchens, that it is immoral to love your enemy, that it is immoral to allow your enemy to take advantage of you, that it is immoral. He doesn't like being told that he has to love his enemies. I would imagine that most people probably feel the same way. They don't like Jesus saying, love your enemies. They don't want to hear that. He's being honest. I like Mr. Christopher Hitchens for being honest. No, we have to hate our enemies, he says, and try to destroy them before they destroy us. He goes on, that's the responsibility. And then he appeals to the same thing that many of us would appeal to in the modern day. That's the responsibility we have, especially for a father. Or if you consider yourself a citizen, what you do to your fellow citizens is wicked and should be described as such. That is, if you love your enemies. So you see, if you love your enemies and you follow Jesus and you believe what he said, you'll be hated by the world. Let me say it again. If you love your enemies and follow Jesus in that, you're going to be hated by the world because the world hates their enemies. And they think that it's irresponsible to follow Jesus' teaching on loving your enemies and turning the other cheek. So they make up stories about what they mean. They insert ideas that are not there to soothe their conscience. So Jesus tells us the way is narrow, and few there be that find life. So, those with ears to hear, those with eyes to see, they're going to hear what Jesus is saying. Christ didn't say, by the way, to turn the other cheek because it was practical. He wasn't consulting the latest human wisdom on the topic available at the time. He was not commanding his disciples to love their enemies and turn the other cheek because it was practical. Instead, Christ's command was contrary to human wisdom. It runs contrary to human wisdom. And it certainly sounds impractical to the hearer.